Hello, I'm Darrell Gunter, your host for Leadership, and I'm so pleased to have as our in-studio guests Mr. Maurice Tyree and Dr. Katie Singer to discuss their book, The Darkest Part of My Blackness, A Journey of Remorse, Reform, Reconciliation, and Revolution Evolution. Maurice and Katie, welcome to the program.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us, Darrell.
You know, normally I would start off, you know, this discussion asking you to describe your education background and experience, but I didn't want to take away from talking about the book because the book is about Maurice's life. And Dr. Singer is just so blessed to have you on because you worked with him to develop and publish this book. I want to start off, how did this all come about? How did you, Dr. Singer, how did you meet Maurice and just how did this discussion come about for this really great, very, I think probably as I said earlier in our pre-interview, one of the most compelling topics that I've had to approach. And Maurice is so giving and sharing of his experience. How did this come about?
Well, there was an email sent around in a listserv of women writers and asking, hey, I have a friend who wants help writing his memoir, and he's written letters when he was in prison. And my work and just I was moved to write Maurice. So I just wrote him and said, hey, here's my, I sent him my CV and just introduced myself. And then we had a phone date to see if we were, I guess, compatible. And I'll just speak for myself, but I got like a best friend out of it. So I'm blessed.
And Dr. Singer, where are you based?
I'm in LA.
You're in LA, and Maurice, you are in
I'm Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C., coast to coast. Okay.
Yep.
And Maurice, when you were contacted by Dr. Singer, what was your reaction and how did you feel? And can you describe what you felt when someone contacted you and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about working with you in your book?
Oh, immediately. So you'll know that Darrell, I'm an intuitive person. Most times I have to feel things, and I immediately knew she was the right person for this. I mean, like instantly almost. And we had a few words, and I was like, okay. It's particularly because I was lacking in so much. So we'll know that I kind of taught myself. I'm like a self-taught person, and education system um, outside of prison and in prison didn't do much for me. So I end up have to follow the old Malcolm X route and start with the dictionary and go that whole route. You know what I mean? So yeah, and it was a lot that comes with that as well, and that's you miss a lot of different traditional ways of learning, and Katie seems to kind of understood that immediately. You know what I mean? So formal, a lot of formal things she's definitely had helped me with. So, and my heart said, this is it. I knew it. But yeah, that's how we got here.
So the title of your book, The Darkest Part of My Blackness, A Journey of Remorse, Reform, Reconciliation, Revolution, Evolution. And for my listening audience, the reason why I'm saying revolution, evolution is that in the book title, you'll see the word R in paren and the word evolution next to it. Why did you select this particular title?
Well, it's two parts to it, actually. The first part, which is the darkest parts of my blackness, it actually came from a title of one of my art pieces. So I already had the title, and it was just, you know, everything is inspired by something that I do, whether it's writing or whether it's visual arts. So it was just one of those things of, I wish I could show you the picture right now, but one of those things where I was having a moment with the prison guards. You know what I mean? And I was on my knees in this particular painting, and God had the gun on me, and I realized in that moment that these was my darkest times of my blackness. You know, of course, race does matter in all aspects, particularly in prison. So that's how the actual the title came about, and it's just always been there. The second portion of it, which was a journey to remorse, reform, reconciliation, as well as revolution, evolution. It's actually four different. It's the rehabilitation part of what I went through, you know, in prison, which I had to go through each phase to kind of end up where I'm at now in terms of thought and action. You know what I mean? Remorse actually was, again, as I explained in one of my letters, with remorse, you never understand that you know you did something wrong. I think everybody know exactly in the moment they did something wrong, even before or after. But I learned that remorse is different. You know what I mean? From based off of where I come from, it's more or less of a process you have to go to, because what might be normal to the outside world is not normal to us. Our behaviors, particularly the things we do, the way we handle conflict through violence, you know what I mean, and things of that nature. So handling conflict through violence is normal for me, or was, you know, and it's normalized in our environment. So when you speak about doing something being wrong and remorse, that's like two separate processes, two separate things. You know what I mean? So the first thing was remorse, actually going through the process of remorse, you know, knowing that I did something wrong, but actually feeling that I did something wrong, and actually trying to do, you have to, now once you have remorse, I think it's your duty now, you have to do something about it, meaning like that's when it give back. That's when you know, it's time to prove that you are sorry. And you do that by your actions, by changing your ways and things of that nature. So that's where remorse come in. And reform is just simply, again, you know, perspective, reforming your perspective, your mindset. Like I just told you, some things that's normal to me might not was normal to you. So here we are. We got to reform that. You know what I mean? And change that into something else. And then you have the reconciliation part. And that was more social in my thoughts anyway. It was more my reconciliation with you guys, my society. As I told my my judge in that letter, it's like I owe you guys as well for causing so much carnage in my behavior and actions. Of course, you know, praying for that. Even in one of my letters, I actually wrote the president of the United States at the time, was Barack Obama, and I wrote him kind of apologizing. That was that was that was my reconciliation part. That's like I can just go to the highest court in the land to tell everybody that I'm sorry. He never wrote back. He was one of the ones that didn't write back, but nevertheless, I did. And ironically, I'm almost certain that that letter I wrote it and sent it on this date. Yeah, I believe it was August 18th or 19th, one or the other. It's the day though. But yeah, and yes, the revolution evolution part. Revolution just simply is it was just the inner portions of what I had to do was I had to revolutionize myself radically. You know, I had to break up a lot of old habits, old programmings had to be reprogrammed. You know, a lot of things of that nature had to be destroyed, you know, so I can be renewed now again. You know what I mean? And that's really what that was. And you revolutionize it, and at the same time, you evolve with it. So I think they go hand in hand, you know what I mean? Because I have to continue on. And so, right. So yeah, that's pretty much that.
You know, your opening chapter is a letter to the judge expressing your remorse. And I keep using this word compelling, and it's just very compelling. Why did you choose to begin your book with that particular chapter?
Hey, the real, I don't know, man. I do know. I'm about to tell you what I want to say. that was probably one of the most hardest decisions I had to make. That whole process
Mm.
within itself. One is this, from a legal perspective, I could never admit my guilt because of the legality of my situation. You know, that's just how it played out. So you're talking like, oh, almost 20 years. This is not me, not guilty. All right. So you're dealing with that. Second, you're dealing with your spirit, like your soul. You know what I mean? So in a moment that I had to regurgitate this is the moment I couldn't turn back to say I didn't do it again. So that has to be understood from a legal standpoint. It is what it is. But so that's why it was a hard decision because I'm dealing with legality at the same time. I want my freedom, but I want to free myself. And I decided on this. I'm just gonna tell the truth and let it fall where it may. Now, granted, the weirdest part about that is I never even was considered being released from prison until after that letter. I said, you know how they say the truth will set you free? I didn't think it was a practical legal. It's just true. And what I did was I told the truth as it was. You know what I mean? However, concerning the book, it was it was my intention just with the reader to just set it straight off the break. I didn't want to go into no whole bunch of trying to flip through, get to know me, this and all that. I wanted you to know instantly, this is who you're dealing with. This is who I am. This is what I did. This is me. And that was it. And from there, it's up to the person who's reading it to continue on. But just even in that first page, you'll, love me or hate me, you'll know me. I know of me. So, and that was the purpose.
And if I could just put a quick context to that, that was a compassionate release letter, really specifically. We explain that in the book. And some legal advisors suggest not even doing that. But it was COVID, and so this was part of the compassionate release letter to the judge. And I'll bet you no one's ever read a compassionate release letter like that before.
Yeah, you're right, Katie. Your attorneys advise against them letters, especially without checking with them.
And how long did it take you to write that letter? Because it's quite extensive, quite thorough, quite comprehensive.
That's a good question, but not long. I probably did that in a day or two. I had to. I mean, it was there. Once it's there, I just begin to spill. It wasn't nothing that I had to do a whole bunch of. I just wrote it. Yeah. So, yeah.
And if I could just,
Please.
Maurice is a natural born writer. Like, I'm a writer, and we can all write, and I'm a writing instructor. I tell everybody we can write, but Maurice is a natural writer. He was writing, so something that seems like some thorough, and it's like he said, it's all in him. He's a writer. He was writing. He's a writer.
And Katie, if you can share with us how you work with Maurice, because he's where he is in Washington, D.C., you're in California. You connected with him. And then, of course, you guys found Live Places Publishing, which is one of my favorite publishers, David Parker. So how did all of this come about?
Well, I did a little homework. I went to a couple of readings of folks who had like a co-author or someone helping them with their memoir, because I wanted to see how people did that. So what we came down to, because Maurice, we have to understand the book was written in many ways because his letters are the foundation of the book. So what we went to was I would read a letter and then pose questions, email them to Maurice, have some time to think about them, and then we'd get on the phone and talk about them, and I would take notes. So we spent many hours on the phone. But that's, there were other things that we did, but that's essentially was the process.
And I noticed, Maurice, within the book, which I love, you said, here, Mr. or Mrs. Reader, here's some learning objectives. It's the first time I've ever seen a non-academic book, but this could be considered academic because it has learning objectives. What are those learning objectives, and why did you provide these for the reader?
Katie,
You want me to take that?
Yes.
So, I think you bring up a really good point, Darrell, that, I found lived places, and I am an academic in one of my hats. So it is an academic press per se. This book is not, consistent with that. They did ask for learning objectives. And, basically I wrote out what I know Maurice's mission is, because it's very clear in the book to me. So gain a nuanced understanding of the American prison system, gain insight into the role of resiliency in life experience, because one of Maurice's points is that, yeah, he came out good, like better, but part of it is because he's so resilient, and you shouldn't have to be that resilient to survive prison. Readers will understand the varying life perspectives based on life experiences, understand the impact of early education experiences. So, we need to reform the whole education system in our country, and readers will come away with a humanized perspective on prison life, which I think, which is Maurice's point, like those are people in there. Some of them have done something really bad, but they're still people.
Right. And then of course we have the prisons that are for-profit prisons, which that's probably a whole nother topic that can be addressed in regards to the difference between the ones that are run by the government versus the ones that are independent, and
Well,
what.
I'm
Please.
sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say, there's a lot of conversation about that, differentiating between for-profit and public. And while there's certainly a difference, not quite as much as people would like to think. It's our whole system. It's our country's, I won't get on my soapbox, but it's our country's system of imprisonment that is wrong, no matter who's running it.
And so when you think about the objectives that you've set out for the reader, is it your intent to immediately get the reader to focus on these topics that are probably new topics to them? And if that is the case, what do you hope that the reader will come away with that can hopefully evoke change?
You want to answer that? Yeah.
Oh man, there are many things. It's almost so many to it's even hard to, one would be this. I have to explain it more in kind of in story. True story is that education. Let's just go there. If you point out education, and I was in education in a classroom in prison for 5 years, 5 whole years to obtain my GED, and never could because of the teaching techniques and the lockdowns, and it was just the inadequacy of the whole situation and learning. You couldn't learn, so it's basically, so it took me 5 years, over 5 years. And so this was one of the things that the judge was baffled about when I was trying to get out. She was like, wow, you can write these types of letters. I have many courses and other things. And she said, but you haven't gotten your GED in 20 years. Like, what are you doing? She couldn't believe that was a thing until we had to prove to her, like, that was a thing. The judiciary system is so far away from the actual the punitive part, so you wouldn't believe the gap into how they coexist. and I just couldn't learn in that environment. And to prove her point, to prove to her that I could, is I got out July the 12th, 2001. I had my GED that August. Oh, July, what is, yes, that's September. Took me 60 days. And
2021, not
yes,
2001.
yes, 2021. Yes,
Yeah.
and so this is, and I sent her my certificate and the whole nine, and thanking her the whole nine. Sent her a nice little package, but and I let her know, like, this is what I mean. Like, no, it's just inadequate. So that's just one portion of it. But what I want the reader to actually to to come away with is questions. That's really because I've spoken before, and I want to be a sort of a guinea pig for that situation, for the people, for the public. Because it's a whole lot going on that people just don't understand about, not this prison, but our life before prison, going through prison, and after prison. You know what I mean? Like Katie was saying, the resilience part, it's like, I don't even think people understand what it takes to not reserve, but preserve these writings. It's just not that simple. You know what I mean? And to want to keep forward, because you're challenged with every day and everything around you saying you are not. You can't be. You are not a part of. You know, and so you have to overcome all that each and every day. Every day is a humiliating day, whether it's spiritual, mental, or physical. You know, and so you have to really tell yourself that, no, I am, and I will do, and I will overcome anything. You know, so, but that's not the typical case. It's not. It's a small percentage. The rest, they just go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's just how prison is. But yeah, I want them to know that. I want them to take this book. I want them to dissect it, and I want them to ask as many questions, as many, whether they legal questions, whether they personal questions. I want them to dig into my mind in every step of the way. And I have to explain something real quick again, Darrell, is this. I never meant to write a book. I was just actually, I used to just like writing. I write, and I thought, to preserve these letters, initially the letters itself was for my children. I was going to construct something that's similar to a diary, because I didn't want them to grow up thinking that, or believing whatever the world told them about me. So I want to construct something for them to read, to hear my actual words, and communicate with people, so they can get their own, perspective of who I am. That was initially how letters even came about, to even preserve them and do things of that nature. But a lot of the other things were just me. I was good at documenting everything. Everything that happened to me, I just document. I write it. I had journals. I write it, and then once you all lay it out, it was almost like a story. Literally, I never even knew that that was a thing until I read one time. I heard, I think, the writer, Ralph Ellison.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this how a lot of his work coming, but I didn't know that. He just used to just write, and then, well, just put it all together, and here you go. You know what I mean? But that's what happened. It was a miracle, and the way things were happening step by step, to kind of have a chronological order to it. That all was just by accident or coincidence. So yeah, but yeah, I want them to understand that, one, we are human and we make mistakes, but you can overcome them, even the worst, and if you're resilient enough, like I said, now I have to live two lives. One is my own, and the second one would be for the victims of this crime, especially the one who are not here. So I have to live double strong, just so, we can get this right. Yeah, that person will have to live on through me, unfortunately. Yeah.
And so this book is now being published. Is there a planned tour to take this message around the country? Because this is a very compelling message, and there's something for everyone in this message.
Yeah, hit us up if anybody watches this video and they want Maurice and I to tag along and come talk. You can see how eloquent Maurice is in talking about this experience and how focused his mission is. I'm sure, Darrell, you could leave some contact information for us. So
please, right now, for folks who are listening and folks who are viewing, how can they get in touch with you?
So my email is katesinger4@gmail.com. That's Kate, not Katie. And so if you reach out to me, we'd be happy to set something up. Yes, our plan, Maurice has a lot of people he's already been working with in this kind of interest group where he is. And so, yeah, we have a list of people. As soon as this book is in our hands, we want to go talk to people.
So we're down to the last couple of minutes of our time together. Maurice and Katie, what thoughts do you want to leave with the readers, the future readers of this book, and folks who hear this interview?
That's Maurice.
Oh, okay. Oh man, there's so much to read to say. I think I'll start with the word inclusion. It's more fitting. If you really believe in people, anyone believe in true inclusion, I think that's what I want you to connect with this book. I want you to understand that we all come from different places, have our own different, stuff, but there's always a medium, and we all can include each other without oppression, without suppression, without, prejudices, being prejudiced, and the whole nine. I think, and you'll see that. This is what I'm trying to prove to people. Like, we can all include each other, man, even in our worst ways. I mean, we can all come out of it and can fight strong for each other. It's a lot that I want to point out in due time about this book. I mean, when we had the time. So yeah, get with us and I'll show you how it all connects. We all connect. Katie?
Katie.
There's nothing left to say. That's the perfect wrap up.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Mr. Maurice Tyree and Dr. Katie Singer to discuss their book, The Darkest Part of My Blackness, A Journey of Remorse, Reform, Reconciliation, Revolution, Evolution, as our guests today on the program. Thank you both for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
That wraps it up this week on Leadership with Darrell W. Gunter on WSOU 89.5 FM, Seton Hall University. We want you to have a great day, but remember, leadership begins with you.